Everyone has a story. I get them to tell it. Welcome to the Aron Bender podcast. Conversations with media personalities about their personal and professional lives and journeys. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached 20,000 downloads and views. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. Really appreciate all the help. Whether you're watching on DBNA TV at dbnatelevision.tv, nightly 11 p.m. Pacific or 2 a.m. Eastern, or streaming with the DBNA TV app on Amazon Fire, Roku, and Apple TV, or listening on your favorite platform, really appreciate all the support. Before we get to my conversation with Kirk Hawkins, a little about my story. I'm a widowed dad of two girls who just lost their mom. A grieving husband, a man in recovery trying to reconnect with the world with fresh eyes, faith, and perspective, a college journalism professor, a white guy in a world of injustice, a 20-year broadcast media veteran who had his dream job and then lost it. A year and a half ago, God gave me a gift, an opportunity to stop, step back, and breathe so I can learn about love, vulnerability, forgiveness, grace, self-care, patience, and understanding. Kirk Hawkins is the utility guy at KTLA, reporting, anchoring, weather, traffic, you name it, he wears that hat, including real estate agent. All right, so where in Southern California are you from?
I am from here in the Los Angeles area. I'm from Agoura Hills.
Oh, okay. Oh, so did you and Alex run into each other
Yes.
at any point?
Yeah, and Alex, because Alex now is at ABC News, right?
No. Alex is over at.
Alex Michelson. Yes. We went to the same high school. He graduated after me. I think I'm 2 or 3 years older.
Okay.
So
okay.
he actually knew my sister really well. They were on student council together. So it's like one big small
cool.
world. It's crazy.
That's cool. How do you still have family there? Is your family there? How were you impacted? I know we're a couple of years removed. How were you impacted by the fires as well as the Borderline Bar and Grill shooting?
Yes. Well, okay. So the fires, my mom still lives in Westlake Village, and she came and stayed with me in my spare bedroom as all that was going on. She was fine. Okay. So she lives in a nice community that's kind of in the middle of, multiple subdivisions and tract homes, but it was obviously a very scary, close call for her. And then the Borderline Bar and Grill shooting really hit close to home. There was a woman from our church, the church that I grew up going to, that was affected and tragically lost her life. And then there was, but I didn't know personally, but I remember growing up and spending a lot of time at the Borderline Bar and Grill, and it was really sad, horrible to experience that, because it was one of the few places where you could go if you were under 21 and have a kind of nightclub experience. And so it was really horrible and really sad, the whole thing too.
I asked, hold on, there's some audio stuff going on. Okay, I think we're good now. I think we're good now. So okay. I wanted to ask about where in Southern California you're from. I know you are a SoCal guy, but you kind of give off this Midwestern charm. I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one who either thinks that or says that, but where do you think that comes from? Or is that kind of that Thousand Oaks, Agoura Hills, Westlake Village vibe?
Well, I'm honored that you think that. Okay, so if I'm really giving you a deep dive, I was born in Santa Monica, lived in like Burbank area for a very short time as a child, Brentwood and then Burbank, very short times, and then Calabasas, then Agoura. Then I went to college in Santa Barbara. Yep. And then as part of the News Across America tour, maybe that's where I got it, because my first job outside of high school, outside of college, I should say, was at a station in Spokane, Washington. And maybe that's part of it. KXLY, yes. Yeah. And maybe that's part of it. And I do feel a kinship to that part of the country after that experience. And it was such an amazing period of time where, because being from Southern California, I learned a lot about myself, kind of about the world around me. It's drastically different. The lifestyle, you have 4 seasons and everything. And so maybe that's what shaped me, but I'm honored because I guess that's, and my maybe also my dad is from the suburbs of Northern California and the East Bay of San Francisco. And then my mom is from Michigan originally. And we still have some relatives in Minnesota. And so maybe that's part of it too. But aw shucks, golly gee.
Let me ask you all just a technical thing. If you could turn me down on your end, I think that might be causing some of the feedback. Is. Yeah.
How do I do that?
I have no idea. No, just the regular volume, just like the regular volume.
I see.
It might be too hot. And I'm leaving all of this in because it's all part of the conversation. It's all part of the game. It's fine.
No worries. How is that?
But I think it's already better. I think it's already better. Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate that. So so you've got Spokane, and let me know if I've got either this order right or if I'm forgetting one of the stations. Because like you said, this News Across America tour. So at KCOY in Santa Barbara, was that during school?
That was during college. Yeah.
Okay.
I was very fortunate my junior and senior year to work there.
And then KXLY in Spokane, WFTV in Florida, back to LA, KCBS and KCAL 9.
Yeah.
And then left LA, which is odd, going to WCCB in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Would have come back to KTLA or come back to LA to work at KTLA. That was what, 2014, give or take.
Yes.
Am I missing anything?
No, you nailed it.
Because there are a few people I talk with on the podcast who they've got 2 or 3 markets under their belt, and then it's LA and they stay, or it's whatever major market they're in at that time. Yeah. And Kirk is like, no, I'm going half dozen, buddy. Let's do it. Let's do it.
It was interesting. I thought that I wanted to see what it was like to be a full-time anchor, and then B, I felt like I wanted to experience one more part of the country. Okay. And Charlotte, Charleston, Savannah, the Outer Banks, that whole area is just so beautiful and so amazing. And it was a good adventure. But I think ultimately, I'll never forget. In fact, I came back. Maybe it was the first summer or the second summer. And actually, do you remember when the shuttle came back to LA?
I remember. I don't remember the year, but I remember it coming back. Yes.
Literally, like, we landed at the airport and that was happening. And I was like, I got to get back. And did a whole vacation where I went from Palm Springs to Santa Barbara to Northern California, went to some wine country stuff. And I just remember thinking, gosh, I miss it so much. And so when I was done, when I had the availability to come back, I was like, I got to come back. Plus, I worked with Jason Ball at CBS. He hired me. My first day was his last day at CBS. And I kept in touch with him. And I always was watching what was happening at KTLA, even especially when I was in North Carolina. And I just was, thinking, gosh, I think I've made the worst decision in my life by not embracing the opportunity to come and work with him at KTLA. And so toward the tail end of my time in North Carolina, and I I was begging, and ultimately he relented. And so that's how that kind of came together.
And of course, Jason's run at KTLA just ended in the last, 6 months or so, 6 months to a year. And he's now running, is it a bed and breakfast or some sort of hotel in Palm Springs?
I have been so busy. Yes, a hotel, I believe. Yes. I've been so busy. I feel horrible. I haven't had a chance to go and visit him and actually see it in action, but it seems like the dream retirement program.
Oh, totally.
And so, yeah.
Where did your wanting to be a storyteller, where did that come from? And is that something where you look back and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm connecting the dots. When I was 4 or 5 or 8, there's these home videos of me doing this. Or was it something that just was always part of the plan?
I'll never forget watching the Gulf War unfolding. And in fact, I remember the Gulf War. I remember the Anita Hill hearings. Yep. And I think, every major Olympics, all of the major news events, thinking I want to be a part of that in some way. And my parents are former journalists. My dad worked at U.S. News and World Report magazine as the bureau chief here in LA. my mom was an editor for the LA Times. And so I had, as they say, ink in my blood.
Yeah.
But I think I also was fascinated by television and film. And growing up in Agoura Hills and Calabasas, even, we were used to periodically running into film sets. And that always kind of fascinated me. And I never really crystallized it. And this is maybe the cheesiest story of all stories. Maybe this adds to my Midwestern vibes, but I remember seeing Up Close and Personal with Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert Redford. And I was like, that's what it is. That's, what it's like in a way. I mean, obviously a syrupy version of the business. And I was like, that's going to be it. And I think that's what I want to chase after. And so you could ask people that I went to high school with in college, where I was like very much a one-track mind. In fact, I interned at KABC Channel 7 the summer between my freshman and sophomore year. I tried to get in the mix as soon as I possibly could to kind of chase after it. And so that's kind of where things came together. So yeah.
Do you feel like, and you mentioned Up Close and Personal, it's a very syrupy version of real life, but
yeah,
has your experience lived up to some of your expectations?
In a lot of ways. I also read a book about breaking into television early on, and that prepared me for the whole start small and work your way up phenomenon. And I think that it did. I don't think, it's not as meteoric as it was in that film, but it's in a way, it's exactly what I thought. In other ways, it's there's obviously pros and cons, but at the end of the day, it's quite the adventure. And I'm so grateful that I've had all of these amazing opportunities along the way too.
Tell me about small market life, Spokane.
Yeah,
where's WFTV? Where's
WFTV is in Orlando.
In Orlando. Okay, so
yeah.
not such a small market.
Yeah.
But nonetheless,
Well,
I would imagine a reporter anchor salary in Orlando is.
Yeah, no. And in fact, like Orlando was like hitting the big time, because I felt like I had done pretty well, with the situation that I had there. But I had an internship in Missoula, Montana.
What?
The summer between my sophomore and junior year, and they let the interns do stories. So I used that reel that I made to pitch to KCOY, and actually a fraternity brother of mine told me about the opportunity because he was working as a reporter at the station at the time. And that got me in as a weekend reporter. And then I that was part of my small market experience, in that I would work weekends and I filled in all over the place during that, as I was like ramping up in that position. And then I felt like I had to experience, I kept wanting to move up. And so I had to experience that mid-market type experience with a trip to Spokane. And that was like my real small market experience. And that was, but it was a sizable mid-sized city. And it was culture shock in a lot of ways, because they had 4 seasons. I had to drive in the snow. And I remember like the first year was fairly mild, but the second year it started snowing right around Halloween and didn't really stop until Memorial Day. And as this SoCal kid, I was like, what am I doing? And it's funny because I think back to that period. I remember when I was in Charlotte and it snowed a little bit for like 3 days. And I was like, I'm done. I can't do this ever again. And for whatever reason in Spokane, I survived 3 winters that were like lengthy, intense. At a certain point, the weather was like a few degrees below zero. And I, for whatever reason, made it work. But it was, there's everyone in media kind of, you kind of ingratiate yourself with, and you become friends with people at all the other stations. And we're all young. It's kind of like grad school. It's a super fun, exciting experience. And I remember that period of time so fondly. And I think, growing up in LA, in the suburbs of LA, of course, already very privileged in a way, to see kind of how other people live that are not that weren't as fortunate, but it's a different lifestyle, and it really made me a better person. And I'm like so grateful, because in terms of who I am, I learned a lot about who I was there. I learned a lot about the world around me, and it was just such like a great time for personal growth. And so all of that is why like I feel so fondly about Spokane.
And we talk in the last year or two, especially very openly and freely, and I love it. The idea of, yes, there has been privilege. There
Yeah.
has been a healthy amount for many people, for myself, for you, in going through this world. That doesn't invalidate hard work and effort and ambition. But at what point did that become clear to you, that say, okay, you know what, that I have led a privileged life, or at least there has been an amount of privilege in my life, and this is now going to not I don't want to say color my reporting, because I feel like that might be, but it helps inform your reporting. It helps
Mhm.
embolden and empower your reporting.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you know, reading Anderson Cooper's memoir, he talks about how he had experienced a lot of tragedy in his life, and he almost had to experience tragedy in the life of some of these people he's covering in war zones, and how that kind of informed and satisfied him in a way. And I'm not saying anything like that, but I think for this in this journalism world, you interview and you meet these people that come from a range of backgrounds. I mean, whether it's celebrities, politicians, entertainers, and then regular people in these extraordinary situations that aren't as fortunate, and it does it does leave an impact on you, and it does it does inspire you, and it helps you grow in a lot of ways too. And so I think that's probably like the impact that I had. And coming from Agoura Hills, I came from my high school class. I remember our number one complaint was that there's nothing to do out here in the burbs. And now that now that I work and live in Los Angeles, I'm like, the world is our oyster, and it was only 20 minutes away back then, before traffic got really out of control.
Right.
And
right.
so basically it's just so funny how that obviously that perspective has changed, and I don't think I would have had it any other way than going through that experience too.
Do you think if you were at UCSB right now, do you feel like you would have taken the same type of path where you go to 3 or 4 or 5 different markets? Or because the world is so much smaller now, with social media, with YouTube, with Instagram and TikTok and all these different platforms where you can showcase your work, do you feel like your path might have changed a little bit?
Well, and it's interesting, because when I talk to kids, college kids trying to figure out what they want to do and if this is the business they want to get into, I talk a lot about how, and what is your thing? What is it that you're interested in? Is it vegan cooking? Is it working out at CrossFit? Is it you like crafting, or you like or you like cooking baked goods or something like that?
Right.
I always ask that, because now it's all about branding, and everyone laughed at Kim Kardashian when she talked about her brand, and that was before this became like the big thing. In fact, I went to New York before I came back to LA and met with all of the networks, and several of their talent recruiter representatives said stuff to me like, well, what is your thing? And I was like, what are you talking about? I mean, I cover breaking news, I can do investigative stuff, I can do feature, all of this sort of thing. And they were like, no, what is your like thing? And at the time I didn't really have an answer, and I had to like really kind of deep dive and think about it. And that's kind of the world that we're in now when we tell kids. And you're right, if I was at UCSB kind of embarking on a new era, in a new space, is this the direction I would have gone? I mean, granted, maybe I would have had a different perspective. I don't know. And what's interesting, one of the key founders of Lyft went to UCSB and was there around the same time I was. And I'm like, if I didn't have such tunnel vision about like, this is the job I want to get into, I would have been surrounded by a little bit more tech interest. And so, I mean, obviously I wouldn't have it any other way, but I wonder if maybe like with a little bit more of an open mind and knowing where this whole crazy internet thing was going to go, like how that would have ended up. And so,
Is that one reason that you have gotten into real estate? Not necessarily like, hey, I need a thing. What can be my thing? But also kind of just planting that seed, like, you know what? It's okay to have a thing. I don't need to necessarily be News Kirk all the time.
Yeah. And actually that was a big thing. That was, I did come back from that trip and I was really thinking a lot. In journalism, we think a lot of times, if this is what I'm doing, if this is what my path is, and for some reason that it doesn't work out this way, what else would I do? And we think of PR, we think of advertising, we think of things in marketing maybe.
Yeah.
And I just was really trying to think beyond that. What's something that could be a passion in a way, but also could be a sustainable career? And I've always loved real estate. I've loved, and there's aspects of it where I love the investing and the cash flow part of it. I like watching the flipping shows on HGTV. I like the fact that, there's the interior design and the architecture aspect. And then I also like the fact that, you buy this thing and it can provide you money for your portfolio down the line, and how that can have a factor. There were many aspects of my life where I didn't think that I'd ever be able to own real estate. Granted, I have a whole separate sidebar on, my own real estate path and trying to find something to buy. But I never thought that I'd actually be able to own anything. And now, after helping people and going through this process, I know that it's real and it's something that can happen. And for whatever reason, I had these limitations. But I think one of the reasons I got into journalism was to be able to ultimately help people. And that was kind of an overarching why. And I think with real estate, what I love is, in a tangible way, I can guide people through this really intimidating process. And we all kind of benefit in the end together too. And so it's really satisfying on a different level.
What are you most proud of? Your Murrow Awards and other journalism awards, or being named like one of the top realtors in Italy? I mean, like what goes on your mantle?
I have yet to work out. It's funny that you mentioned that. I have that listing in Italy, and I have yet to find anyone for that yet, but I'm still trying. But no, I think, life is a series of chapters, and I think I'm just so grateful and happy to have had all of these amazing experiences. And the Murrows early on in my career, and then the continuing with the real estate awards, they're great and amazing. And who doesn't like, when you get people to come on this podcast, who doesn't like to talk about themselves, and who doesn't like to be recognized for something? And I'm definitely happy about all of the above too. Maybe one day I'll add an Emmy to the mix or something.
Nice.
But,
Nice. Now, what would you say were some similarities and some stark differences getting into news versus getting into real estate, like those first few years of each?
What's really interesting is we talk about how news and the news schedule is around the clock, and the hours are tough, and you work weekends, nights, holidays, etc. That barely scrapes the surface for the lifestyle of real estate. Real estate is 24/7. It's late nights, early mornings, weekends. There's blood, sweat, tears. There's a high emotion. And so real news was a great preparation for that, because I feel like I'm more adaptable. And even now, in real estate, you kind of work every day and you make your own schedule in a way, but you also, I think because of real estate, I can now work 12 days in a row and I don't even think about it. And it's built up this resilience, I think, and this stamina that I didn't even think that I had too.
But that's also at a time when we're emphasizing and empowering self-care. So
yeah,
how do you make sure that, okay, yes, I've just worked 12 days. Maybe it doesn't feel like 12 days because you're working your passions, but still,
Yeah.
how do you make sure that you pull back, you step back?
No, and you're right. It's so important, and I think even just this week, I've actually started, and this sounds very LA in a way, but I've started working with a trainer and a nutritionist and making, trying to set the time. I think the biggest thing for me is learning to say no and standing up for yourself. And that's been an entirely different process. But I think, in fact, I've been working the later morning shift this week, and I've made the point of running on the treadmill a little bit before before I get ready. And that's been such a huge, great way to like feel better and to start the day kind of, taking the offense. And, a lot of prominent real estate agents will do things like that where they'll hold on to their personal time. And I definitely could be a little bit better at that, but I think you're right. It's important to take the time and just rest. And, I interact with so many people all day long. Sometimes I just want to sit on the couch and throw on Netflix and vegetate for a while. Cause it's usually go, go, go. But you're right. You always have to work on spending time, caring for yourself. And I, was really fortunate in a way in that my life didn't really change that much during COVID. I was still out I work with a developer and I look for acquisitions. And so when I wasn't doing work in that respect, I was doing TV stuff. But I think there were moments of solitude where I really had a chance to think about, how I want to show up in the world and what I want to bring to the table, and standing up for myself and standing up for myself is only I'm not going to go out tonight because I have to and meet you guys for dinner because I have to go and, make sure to get a workout in, or I just want to go to bed a little bit earlier. And those are, as silly as it sounds, those are lessons that I need to learn a little bit more.
Not going to let you slide past that sidebar about your real estate path and finding something for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I've gone back and forth. In fact, it's so fun when I show up at KTLA, especially during the mornings, because everyone has questions and they'll want to know what's going on with the market, what they should do about, if they need to renovate, how should they renovate the property? Where should they buy a second property? And that sort of thing. And so I'm constantly bombarded. And so I've also gone through this process where, at first I thought I wanted to buy a duplex, triplex type situation. And then because a lot of things have changed with the eviction moratoriums, that became, there was a question about maybe investing in one of those. And so I've been kind of waiting, but now I have this idea about, buying a single family home somewhere nearby. And, I've also gone back and forth on the neighborhoods, and I'm the worst client ever because I'm way too precious about, where is it going to be? What are the neighborhoods? There's so many amazing neighborhoods in LA, and you have so many choices, especially with some of these neighborhoods that are kind of emerging in parts of the city. And I have preferred areas that I like, and then I have other areas that I know where they're good investments. And it was this back and forth, between all of that. And so my dream, for example, which, is not happening anytime soon, but you never know, I'll just throw it out there. But I love Truesdale Estates in Beverly Hills, for example. And I mean, granted, those houses are in the ballpark of 7 to 25 million and beyond, but they are, you get these cool mid-century vibes. They're one level, they have views, and they're conveniently located in a really nice area too. So that's kind of my dream house. And so, you have the dream house, you have the investment property idea. And what actually, one of the other things that really got me fired up about real estate is the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he talks about cash flow and financial freedom. And that was a really big drive. That's a big driver into what I'm looking for. And so I am looking, the numbers are really, every property that I look at, I have to run numbers and see if it works for me. But that whole process is underway, and I'm hoping that I'll find, I just put an offer on something a couple weeks ago. It didn't work out, but I'm getting closer to something, hopefully before the end of the year.
It's okay, Kirk. It's not the end of the world. There will be other properties. Let me help
Yes.
talk you down. Let me help. Yes. So how many listings do you currently have now?
So right now I have, let's see, I have 2 listings and then 2 in escrow.
Okay. Oh, congrats. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. The market has been so hot that I've been just kind of sliding everything into escrow and closing the escrows.
It's crazy. So I still get cold calls from real estate agents. Do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? Because in my neighborhood, there is only one property on the market. As of last week, I talked with a local real estate agent. In all of the Santa Clarita Valley, there are only 245 properties listed.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some neighborhoods that would be in that ballpark that would have that many listings and maybe have 15 to 20 right now.
Right.
And so it's just incredible. In fact, there's I'm trying to think of who told me this story. It might have been one of my KTLA coworkers, if I remember correctly, but some guy, an agent, literally pulled her over and said, rolled his window down and was like, "Hey, do you know anyone that's interested in selling?" Because he was like right in the street and in the neighborhood. And so people are like, interest rates are so low. Yeah. The inventory is so low. It's this like perfect storm of activity.
And I would sell. I tell every agent I would sell if I wasn't then going to pay top dollar for the next place.
Right. And that's the hardest part is, you sell for top dollar and then you become a buyer fighting with everyone else.
Yes.
And so unless you are ready to kind of hunker down in a lease or you have a secondary property or some sort of arrangement, you're in a very difficult place to do this.
Not to mention, I feel blessed, by the way, that we did a refi in December, I think it was, January.
Oh, perfect.
2.5%.
Wow. That's amazing.
From like 4.325 or something.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's interesting. I've got that. I can't give that up.
No. And it's like, why, unless the environment changes, why would you, And, even though I'm a real estate agent, I like to say to everyone, and I think it's important, is hold on to real estate as long as you possibly can. And if you can hold on to something and then acquire something else, you'll only be better off in Southern California. And I know as a real estate agent, I should be saying sell, 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 sell. But I think it's so important to build a portfolio, and later on that can be, a nice income generator for retirement or whatever else you might need too.
Recently on the KTLA Weekend Morning News, you were at a tattoo parlor.
Yes.
And is it Little Miss Disaster? I don't remember her name. But
yes.
I know it's Little Miss Disaster on Instagram. And
Danny,
Danny, yes. And of course, good friends with our good friend Jim Lanahan, who is a huge fan of the KTLA Weekend Morning News.
They're both like super fans.
Oh, they compete for how many stories each can post on a weekend morning about you and your crew. But you were just at a tattoo parlor. Did you actually get a tattoo yourself? And was that your first?
I have to confess that it was a fake. We were totally faking out.
Kirk, I saw the hawk.
It was a hawk, so I came close. But
okay.
I have started thinking about getting one maybe, but it's so far off in the distant like future that
you say that now. In 3 days, it's going to be like, I just got 5.
Right. And that's what apparently happens.
It is. This was my first with my wife. We have matching heart tattoos.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I think we got that like in 2010. And then it was a few years before I got another one. And then boom, mic and headphones, boom, daughter's names, boom on my leg. Yeah, once you pop, you can't stop.
Once you pop, you can't stop. And you totally continued along the way. So there might be more.
Oh, there will be. Yes. I just don't know what or where, but there will be. Yes.
What did you think of the sensation of actually getting it?
Oh, it was fine. It was fine. I was surprised at how little it hurt. Now,
okay.
Now, granted, I'm on my forearms and like a very fatty muscular area on my calf.
Uh-huh.
I'm not getting like, a chest piece where there's little to no fat or muscle, because those are the ones that they say it's brutal. It's
Those
absolutely
hurt the
brutal.
most.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I can imagine. And I am a wuss when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I that's one thing that I think I'd have to work through.
But how cool was it, though,
you
to
never
be
know.
there while she's,
Maybe I could get a hawk on my chest or back or something.
yes, please do. I beg of you. I beg of you. And it's got to be, of course, it's got to be live. Now, this one, actually, so the heart was not live on the air, but the mic and headphones, the girls' names, and then the tattoo on my leg were all live in studio on the air.
Oh, wow.
At KFI.
In studio, too.
Yes. With
How
listeners.
chic they came to you.
Yes. Yeah. I a listener friend back in like 2011 or 12 was like, hey, if you ever want a tattoo, I can come to you guys in studio. I kept that in the back of my mind. We did fundraisers where the listeners would donate like more than $500 to come get a tattoo with me in studio. So
wow.
it works out. It works out. I mean, it's no KTLA mic flag, but
I know that was incredible.
How cool
that
was
she did that? Yeah.
That's
a dedicated
and it's your
fan.
mic. It's your mic. It's not like just, she just found it online or something like that. It's like, no, that's totally yours.
Well, and I think the inspiration she found on Jean Kang's Instagram, and
That's
she
cool.
searched all over, and that was like the best one. And it's really cool because, I mean, she would have gotten other tattoos anyway, but she had this amazing story about how she went through some health challenges, and watching KTLA kind of helped her, move on through those challenges, and it made it a little bit easier. And so it was really cool to kind of, at least be there as part of the process as it's happening. And she's going, as she was, making that permanent mark for her fandom.
I want to be there at least in spirit or live streaming when you get that hawk tattoo.
You never know. There was at one point, I've thought about getting a kanji letter on my calf, but I forget why I backed away. But maybe kanji, that's too trendy now, or it's like a thing of the past that it was more the early aughts. So I'll stay away from that.
It was good to catch up, man. Good to get to know you a little bit. Thank you. Big fan of yours for many years. Appreciate it, man.
Well, thank you. I'm honored, and yours as well.
Thanks for watching the Aron Bender podcast here on YouTube or IGTV or DBNA TV. Nightly, 11 p.m. Pacific, 2 a.m. Eastern, streaming at dbnatelevision.tv or the DBNA TV app on Amazon Fire, Roku, or Apple TV. Connect with me on social media at aronbender.com. Also, email me guest ideas or comments, aronbendermedia@gmail.com. Be well, and thanks for watching.